Hey gang, and welcome to another Dueling Rabbits Productions video about the studio's new Ulla Cyrus combination Drawloom. In my last video, we assembled the loom in our studio annex at the Banana Factory in sunny Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Now, a few weeks later, the loom is warped and weaving, and it seems like a good time for the grand tour of its 125 centimeter glory. These big looms are somewhat exotic beasts in the United States. In fact, I'd never even seen one in real life before it arrived in my driveway over the winter. When we opened up the beautifully packed coffin and excavated the layers within, I saw many familiar things, but came upon some mysteries too. Metal tubes, 1.5 kilogram workout weights, 4 different spools of Texolf cord. I had to figure a lot out, intuit the purposes of various bits, and carry out some experiments to see how it all worked. But now that I'm making good progress on its maiden warp, it seems like an appropriate time to share some details about the loom's unique design features, quirks, and optimizations. The drawbridge in particular is conceptualized quite differently from those I've seen before, including the elegant mirrorhead attachment on my beloved 100 centimeter Glamocra standard. Let's look at the basic loom before examining the combo setup more closely. The UC is a vertical countermarch loom currently rigged for 5-end satin. If we start at floor level, the first thing we might notice is the mechanism for the treadle tie-up. It's cool. Cords for the lambs are looped around these rings, which thread onto the hardware that runs across the top of each treadle. The cords loop through themselves and are secured with Texolf arrow pegs. This allows all adjustments to be made above the treadles, a feature I really like. The other ends of the cords have static attachments to the eyes on the undersides of the lambs. The treadles themselves are famously curved, taking a lot of the guesswork out of the tie-ups with a system that is optimized for single harness applications. Moving up to the ground shafts, we can see that they are hung from the jacks with cup hooks in a manner similar to the pattern shafts. Adjusting the height of the shafts is quick work indeed. If we move up to the jacks themselves, we can see another interesting feature of this loom. These 5 pairs of cords here, each attached to opposite ends of the same jack, travel over this bar and down towards the floor. Each pair of cords terminates in a 1.5 kilogram weight, which serves the same function as the elastics on my Glamocra. At rest, these weights hold the jacks in their vertical position, keeping the ground shafts at neutral, with the warp passing through the heddles at the bottoms of their long eyes. Every time I press a treadle, the cords attached to pivoting jacks are raised. You can see pairs of weights rising, one for each shaft in motion. When I release a treadle, the weights fall back to earth, snapping the shafts back to neutral. It's a wonderfully effective system, although I did find the heavier treadling took some getting used to. Let's move on to the main event, the combination drawbridge. This is where things get really interesting, with 3 different mechanisms for pulling pattern units. Here's the diagram for the pattern shafts as they are threaded for my first project. The front of the loom is here. My design requires 47 pattern shafts in total, arranged in 3 groups. The central panel of the piece consists of these 73 units arrayed in a single point for an all-over symmetrical design. My borders, also threaded in single points, are on these 8 shafts to the rear. Finally, uninterrupted vertical stripes on either side of the borders are threaded on the 2 shafts at the back of the pack. We're now standing at the back of the loom where the warp travels away from the leaf sticks towards the pattern shafts. You can see the threading array pretty clearly. Here's the central point spread over 37 shafts, allowing me to easily pull a design around its vertical axis. Here is the point threading for the borders, 1 on each side, and here are the shafts for my stripes. The cords for the pattern shafts are routed around the outside of the loom to these pull handles on my right as I sit to weave. This is a very different design from the mirrorhead Drawloom, where the pull handles are drawn at a console over the beater. The mechanics are the same, however. When I pull a handle, it raises one pattern shaft, allowing me to weave pattern on the associated units. My threading gives me this basic format for building my designs. Here is my central panel with its single point. Here are my borders with their potential for a variety of symmetrical motifs. By building rows and stacking columns, I will be able to weave extremely complex designs. This is an efficient scheme that allows me to double my pulling power because the threading of the pattern shafts takes care of the symmetry. But this arrangement is also a limitation because it requires that all my designs be constructed around a central turning point. I'm going to need more flexibility for my first piece, a banner for the new studio featuring my signature design. There's no problem with my boxing bunnies. Their mirrored orientation is handled automatically by the pattern shaft threading. But my lettering down the sides is not symmetrical, nor is it the same on both sides of the piece. I require an alternate method for pulling these units. Single draw cords to the rescue! By attaching the central 11 units in each point to its own pull, I can release leashes from the tyranny of the pattern shafts and do whatever I like with them. You can see them here. Each cord is tied to its own 5-thread leash. The cords are routed over these tubes above the pattern shafts and down towards the hook bar above the beater. The tubes are placed at different heights, such that all the cords are the same length no matter where their associated leashes are located, and all will pull their units to the same height. Tension on the cords is adjusted by finessing the two uprights on either side of the tube's support pieces. On the Ulla Cyrus, the single draw cords take pride of place over the beater. They come down through the reed here and loop around this horizontal bar. Pulls can be saved on these robust hooks, which are an awesome feature of the loom. Something that is slightly less awesome, in my case anyway, is the connection to the leashes. Each cord must be cut and hand-tied, and, having never been a Girl Scout or a serious sailor, I'm still prevaricating about which knot is best. I'm leaving the ends long until I figure it out. So, pattern shafts and single pulls. But there is a third method for raising units on this loom, and it has to do with this beam that extends above the head of the weaver as she sits at the loom. Say you want the convenience of pulling repeated combinations of units, but not necessarily units that are associated with particular pattern shafts. This gizmo allows me to save groups of units that are already located on single draw cords. Extension cords are first attached to each of the draw cords in question. The extenders run from each cord here behind the bar, through the rattle, and over the head of the weaver to the beam, where they are secured to another rattle. The desired cords are then looped together with a lash into a single pull, which, when required, is drawn down and secured to one of the hooks here. It is possible, with complex repetitive designs, to save every row of the pattern in this manner, and thus weave relatively quickly without a lift plan. I look forward to experimenting with this capability in due course. The Ulla Cyrus is a sophisticated draw loom with vast capabilities I am only beginning to appreciate. We're going to really enjoy getting to know one another. Since the UC is a countermarch loom and I'm currently weaving 5-end satin damask, it seems like a good opportunity to think about the sequel to last year's video, Loom Mechanics 101. Please stay tuned for the next exciting installment, and thank you, as always, for watching.